Hey everyone, Joshua Severe Weather with a special update here for Wednesday afternoon and evening. Hurricane Francine strengthened some more and is now making landfall in Southeast Louisiana as a Category 2, but we've got more threats evolving across the Atlantic that I want to talk about as well here in this video. And I appreciate you guys joining me this afternoon and evening. We may potentially be seeing yet another United States storm getting drummed up here fairly quickly over the weekend and affecting the Carolinas and Mid-Atlantic region for the first portion of next week, and the possibility that this one could snag a name as well and bring some rough weather to coastal sections. I'm going to be talking about that. I'm going to talk about what's going on with Francine. We're also going to look at several other systems here in kind of a jam-packed video here. And I'm going to try to move pretty quickly. But here is a look at what we're talking about for the next several days. Francine, Category 2 hurricane, making landfall here in the next couple of hours and affecting the New Orleans area and a lot of southeastern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, even peripheral effects across parts of Alabama and western Florida here over the next couple of days. Off the coast, we are going to see the remaining upper level feature from Francine make its way eastward, and new low pressure is expected to form sometime this weekend. Uncertainty right now because it hasn't formed, but modeling showing the potential for yet another subtropical or tropical storm, and maybe possibly worse depending on how things play out with that. That could unravel pretty quickly here over the weekend as waters are very warm off the southeast coast. I'm going to show you some plots on that after we talk about Francine, and then two other areas to watch in the central Atlantic and a new tropical depression that is poised to become Tropical Storm Gordon here over the next day or so. We do still have a hurricane warning in effect as some of the worst weather from the storm is now making its way inland between Morgan City and Houma. We are seeing hurricane force winds extending inland now with the eye wall, affecting those of you that are in Terrebonne, Lafourche, St. Mary Parish, and that will spread northeastward with potentially hurricane force winds affecting the greater New Orleans area, the river parishes, and maybe sneaking up into parts of the Florida parishes and the North Shore as we get into the later evening hours. We still have tropical storm warnings as well east of the landfalling area as winds are growing in size that are reaching this tropical storm force all the way into coastal Alabama and back towards Cameron, Louisiana. Here is a look at the current position. The storm is just about to make landfall. In fact, the eye wall has already come on shore. The eye's gotten massive. I'll show you that in a minute. But hurricane force winds are extending inland now and will continue to do so. Tropical storm force winds all the way up to greater New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette. Sustained winds are 100 miles per hour. This is a Category 2 hurricane. Fortunately, it's moving fairly quickly at 17 miles per hour. And as a result, it's going to be inland and weakening pretty quickly here later this evening and overnight. It will be a tropical storm as it enters Mississippi here late tonight, and then a weakening system, a tropical depression that could still have some issues over parts of Mississippi and even eastward here tomorrow, and a remnant low that's going to eventually fade as we get to the end of the week and early next weekend. Here is a look at the wind field, and you can see obviously Louisiana is getting hit pretty hard, ran pretty hard from the southwest here as that area of hurricane force winds has grown. And you can see that will continue to extend northeastward. Here is where we're looking at the arrival time of tropical storm force winds. They're not quite yet to New Orleans, but we'll be getting there. Maybe even by the time you're watching this video, they already have arrived. Baton Rouge as well. But we have seen wind gusts over the water on oil platforms over 100 miles per hour. In fact, up to 105 to 110. So definitely seeing some damage across these oil platforms and rigs here. And that damage is now going to spread inland as we get into the evening hours. Now, the system's getting hit with some strong wind shear out of the southwest. However, it's resilient, and as a result, it hasn't really weakened as expected. It will as we get to tonight. It loses the fuel from the water, but we're seeing this approaching shortwave trough here, and that is allowing it to turn northeast. And eventually that trough lifts out into this area, and we get left with an upper level low, which will allow the system to do what we call occlude in the weather business, where it'll become stacked up and eventually fade. But this upper level feature is eventually going to move eastward, getting kicked east by this bigger trough in the northwestern United States. And that's going to send some energy over into the warm southwest Atlantic, just off the coast of South Carolina and Georgia as we get to the weekend. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Hurricane Francine has a cloud-filled eye, but you can see the eye poking out from time to time just south of Morgan City. Which is about here. Houma is over here, Thibodaux just northeast. This is New Orleans right here. and this is Baton Rouge up in here. And you can see a massive eye wall around it that is moving northeastward. It'll continue and move into the river parishes tonight, then into the Florida parishes. That's what they're called, because it used to be part of Florida way back in the 1800s, I guess. And that will bring it over parts of Tangipahoa and St. Tammany and Franklin parishes. Here's a look at the infrared satellite. And again, you can see kind of a convective blow up here in the final frames, indicating that cloud tops are getting colder, rainfall rates are getting more intense, and the winds as a result have come up a little bit. You can see that pressure drop here as well. We're in the 970s, fortunately not getting any lower, but what you'll also notice here is that there's still a pretty decent area of winds at flight level that are exceeding 96 knots. That's 110 miles per hour. Now, down near the ground, those winds are lessened, probably by about 10%, but still, we're seeing wind speeds approaching 100 miles per hour sustained over the ocean water here. And that is what's going to be sneaking northeastward here into this area. They will weaken as they approach New Orleans this evening, some, but my concern is that we've got a Category 2 and we still don't have a hurricane warning for greater New Orleans, when there will be the potential to see hurricane force wind gusts. Here's the data message from earlier that was taken, and you can see that clear eye wall, the eye, learn to speak here, and an eye wall around it. And here are the pressure readings as well, showing as low as 972 millibars. I'll get back to the forecast here, but wanted to show you guys radar from Radar Scope. And you can see on the left here, this is the reflectivity. Here's the eye, but the eye wall is already on shore, moving into Chauvin and Houma and Morgan City here. These are where some of the strongest winds are being felt already. So Homa's getting hit really hard. Pretty soon it'll be Thibodaux, Schriever, Chack Bay, Pancurtville, and eventually up towards Laplace, I believe. You can see wind speeds here are at their greatest on the northeastern eye wall as well. So we're about to get an intense period of wind in Houma and Chauvin, and unfortunately the same place that got the eye wall with Hurricane Ida. This storm's moving faster than Ida. It's coming from the southwest, not the southeast, so obviously differences, and it's not as intense, but it's hitting areas that were weakened by that hurricane just a few years ago, and unfortunately we just can't catch a break if we're in Louisiana because of that. I'm going to just zoom in a little bit for you guys to see that a little bit more closely here. And you can see the strongest winds are beginning to approach Dulac, Chauvin, and Montagut. And I probably got those wrong. I'm not Cajun, unfortunately, but I do love Cajun food. You guys can see here wind speeds on radar indicated close to 100 miles per hour at radar level. So it's probably a little bit lower near the ground, but these stronger hurricane force winds are now starting to spread northward and will be moving through portions of eastern Terrebonne Parish as well as north and western portions of Lafourche. And more than likely in Grand Isle, you guys will start to see some of these stronger winds as well, although you're kind of on the line at this point. So that is a look at the radar. Let's look at the future of this. Forecast is in pretty good shape at this point. No need to change it. I don't like anything after 48 hours. This is all pretty much garbage here as we're going to lose that circulation. The model's kind of guessing at where it might go next, but I don't think we're going to have to worry about that too much. And you can see the intensity forecast has peaked. It was run at Category 1. It's obviously a little higher now. We can just do this here, but it's eventually going to come right back down into this region of weakening as we get into the evening hours. Here's the HWRF model. Actually did pretty well with this with the 970 millibar, the landfall point in good shape. And you can see the HWRF model takes the eye of the hurricane over the western half of the New Orleans metro area, and the eye wall on the northern and eastern side of New Orleans moves in right around 6 to 7 o'clock, maybe 8 o'clock tonight. So New Orleans is going to get the dirty right side of this storm, and it is going to be nasty with hurricane force conditions, intense rain, maybe even some lightning strikes. The southeast wind will pound Barataria Bay, Grand Isle, and these areas near the southeastern Louisiana coast. And that eye wall very much could hold together a little bit longer and even hit places like Covington, Mandeville, Slidell, Stennis, Waveland, past Christiane before it collapses due to strong wind shear as we get to the overnight hours tonight. But the good news about this storm is that it is going to weaken faster than it strengthened. Sometimes we don't see that necessarily in the Northern Gulf, but we will be seeing that due to the wind shear that's hit it. Here's a look at potential wind gusts. This is 5 o'clock central, and you can see Houma will see wind gusts approaching hurricane force between 6 and 7. New Orleans will see approaching hurricane force, even Slidell 74. Again, these are instantaneous numbers given every hour. So in between here, we could see wind gusts beyond these values. You can see Lake Pontchartrain 80 miles per hour over the causeway here. I don't know if it's shut down, but I would definitely not drive on it if that were the case. And even Lake Borgne, we could see wind gusts to 80 miles per hour and portions of lower Jefferson into western Plaquemines, lower St. Charles Parish, and certainly Lafourche Parish are going to have hurricane force wind gusts. But even well to the north and east of this, hurricane force wind gusts are possible near the mouth of the Pearl River, and strong tropical storm force winds affecting all of the Baton Rouge and the rest of the river parishes. And that will likely cause power outages as the evening wears on. We could even see some of these strong winds moving up into southern Mississippi away from the coast, places like Hattiesburg, Laurel, and maybe even sneaking up towards Meridian and Jackson as we get into the overnight hours. So power outages could expand even farther inland as this storm system slows down. Fortunately, it will weaken as it does so. So that's a look at what we're expecting here. The rest of the South will have some interesting weather as well the next few days. Wind gusts may get over 50 miles per hour around Mobile Bay, 40 to 50 miles per hour around Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Montgomery, maybe even northern Alabama and Mississippi tomorrow morning. Deal with wind gusts that could be over 50 miles per hour, leading to some power outages. So well inland, this system could still be felt, as they often are, when they come from the Gulf of Mexico. Eventually, we're going to see these winds dying down as we get to tomorrow night, and quieter weather, for the most part, is expected on Friday. This is all driven by the jet stream at this point, not from the actual storm. Power outages are starting to mount here across St. Mary Parish, also Iberville Parish, and St. John the Baptist Parish, some in Assumption, Terrebonne, as well as Iberia. These numbers should be climbing pretty quickly as we start getting more data tonight. Here's a look at rainfall totals here in South Louisiana. Potentially, according to the NAM, 7 to 12 inches of rain near where the eye wall goes. We're seeing that intense rain. I showed you that radar earlier. And lesser amounts when you get up to Lafayette and Baton Rouge, and greater amounts across St. Tammany. But heavy rain expands northward. This Gulf moisture from our hurricane goes all the way up into central and northern parts of Mississippi. And you'll be able to see those numbers here in just a little bit. We probably won't have flooding across Alabama, but watch for training storms here. The NAM gets super aggressive, and this may or may not be right, but it shows heavy rain north of Birmingham and also down around Panama City, some hot spots here. But we could see significant well inland rains here across eastern Arkansas, the Delta region of Mississippi, and across the I-55 corridor here tomorrow. So we'll have to watch that here. Also in the Memphis area, potentially 2 to 4 inches, maybe locally higher amounts as well. And even parts of western Tennessee, Kentucky, and downstate Illinois do have a chance of seeing some significant rain here, albeit I don't think we're going to have a big threat for flooding, just some locally slow-moving showers and storms here by Friday. Tornadoes are starting to become more of a threat. I haven't seen any warnings yet, but I do think we're going to see some here later this afternoon and especially tonight, mainly across far southeast Louisiana and the Mississippi Gulf Coast. These numbers have come down on our models today, which is fortunate, but we actually do have an overnight tornado threat over southeastern Mississippi, southern Alabama, and possibly even the Pensacola area. Now, there'll be a bit of a lull, but tomorrow with heating and with an increase in upper-level energy, we do have a climbing threat for tornadoes again, even into the central panhandle of Florida, right along southeastern Alabama, southwestern parts of Georgia, and eventually extending up into northern central Alabama. Mississippi, though, according to the HRRR model, is going to escape the worst of these. I do think we might have to still keep an eye on it, but I think the better chance for storms is going to be Alabama, Florida, coastal Mississippi, maybe even over southwestern Georgia here over the next, say, 36 hours. So that's it on Francine. I'll keep you guys posted with updates on my page. But let's talk about the other systems out here. 4 to watch, and I'm not super worried about these 2 in yellow at this point. But if you're in the islands, you need to watch them. You can see kind of one very tiny circulation, then a bigger circulation. These are the 2 invests that may try to hold together and survive as they move in this general direction here. So we definitely got more rain coming here for the Leeward Islands, Puerto Rico, and such. But here's our new tropical depression moving away from the Cabo Verde Islands right here. And this one's going to gain more latitude, fortunately, and should not be a threat to land. I think this will be Gordon. This is Francine here. This is something that could form on the Pacific side of Mexico, but the next threat hasn't even formed yet. The upper level low is going to take it in this direction, and eventually we could see a homegrown system here that maybe initially isn't fully tropical, but eventually gets into that realm here by the end of the weekend. You can see again, here's our features. This is 92L, 94L. Oh no, this is 94. This is 92. Whatever. We're just going through numbers here like some of you guys go through clothing, but here's the next feature here. This is the tropical depression here, and that is one that we're going to track but not be super concerned with. You can see it right here, going through some phases where it should be a low end, maybe moderate tropical storm over the weekend. And at this point, I don't see it becoming a long-term threat to land. It's probably going to end up turning away at this point based on the upper level pattern where the ridge is located. And you can see that here with our model spaghetti. And you can see intensity-wise, not a whole lot to write home about for a couple more days. And then maybe it gets into a spot where it can strengthen, potentially even towards hurricane intensity here, but turning away east of 55 west. And you can see here's the intensity forecast, not too poorly behaved for the next few days. All right, so here is an area that we do need to keep an eye on at this point, 94L. It's starting to spin up here a little bit more. Wind shear's dropped off. This is Barbados right here. So the Leeward Islands are over in this direction. Windwards are down in here. And here's the center of that circulation, and it is going to track in this direction. So at the very least, you're going to get some rain and gusty winds. At the worst, we could see something briefly spin up here at this point. So do keep an eye on it here. I just don't have a lot of consistency in my models today to say with confidence it's going to turn into anything. And you can see right here, a new invest, so models don't really quite know what's going on, but I would not be shocked if it tried to get up to tropical storm strength. And the next name on the list would be Helene. But if that doesn't become Helene, there is an opportunity for us to see Helene here. You can see it spinning up off the southeast coast. Low pressure forming east of Jacksonville, Florida here Saturday morning. The GFS, by the way, is a little more aggressive, not surprisingly, but it's also quicker in pulling this inland. Other models are going to take maybe a little bit longer, but this is Sunday, and it actually shows landfall pretty close to Calabash and North Myrtle Beach here Sunday night, Monday morning as what could be a tropical storm. And if it stays out there longer or has a little bit lower wind shear, tropical storm may not be enough. I'm not going to say right now we're going to have a hurricane strike on the Carolinas, but I would not rule it out either. It's not as easy a situation to figure out as what we had with Francine, which was going to clearly be a hurricane if you looked at how the models were handling things just a few days before it even moved into the Western Caribbean. But this is the GFS model. Other models are different. This is the Canadian, though. It's actually kind of in the same boat here. And then I don't know if I've got the latest European. Yeah, here it is. The European is not as aggressive with it. That doesn't surprise anybody who understands how this works. And then looking at some other solutions here, like the Icon does not really develop it close enough to land to be a threat. I don't think that's right, by the way. Here are the ensembles from the European. This is Sunday morning, and then things are very quickly spinning up, and this is Monday morning. And worst case scenario is we have a low that forms Sunday morning, then a potential cyclone, and then a depression or storm with a tropical storm watch or warning for the coastal Carolinas. That could evolve very quickly this weekend, so keep that in mind. You see a few more solutions that are farther off to the north and east, some that are already pulling it inland. And at this point, until something forms, we just don't quite know. Finally, nasty situation for China and for Okinawa here as a developing typhoon takes aim here. Potentially a very strong one, 120 to 130 mile per hour typhoon heading just south of Shanghai. Here are the ensembles. Again, some uncertainty, but indicating that leftward bend, that's going to take it right into China here. And you can see the satellite is showing what could be a pretty quickly intensifying system over the next couple of days. Thank you all so much. I'm praying for everybody here in Louisiana and the rest of the southern United States. Video tomorrow is going to talk about the leftovers, but we're going to talk a lot more about what's developing off the southeast coast and any other threats across the Atlantic. I appreciate your time today. I hope you all have a blessed evening. I give all the honor and glory to God who gives me this opportunity every day to bless others. And as a meteorologist, to share my gifts with other folks and hopefully get them prepared for what can come. A lot can still change here in the southeast system, but we don't have a lot of time. If it forms, it's going to move inland within a day or two. I'll keep you guys posted on that. And as always, I hope you all have a wonderful evening. See you soon.